Welcome into the Michigan State Hockey Hub. We're here to kind of recap the game from Saturday night, Michigan State's first game of the year. This did not count. Their actual first game will be a home opener this upcoming Friday against Bowling Green. I just wanted to touch base for those of you who have not seen any of these videos before, or if you started joining in the off season, just kind of what Michigan State Hockey Hub is. And it's just, I decided to create this kind of an advocate for the sport, try to just bring more Michigan State hockey content to you. If you all would just do me a favor, it does nothing to you personally. It just helps us. I make no money off this, so it's not a monetary thing, but liking and subscribing the YouTube videos go a long way. Share it with a friend if you know that they like Michigan State hockey. We plan on doing these all year, game recaps, series previews, interviews, things like that. So if you would just consider liking and subscribing, that would do a lot for us here. And I'm going to bring in our guest this week. Let me add him here. Brad LaPlante. Brad, how are you doing?
Oh, so good. So good, Clay. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. So Brad and I think you came on the show a couple of times last year, and we actually met up at a game. And um, Brad just started his own podcast. And one thing about Brad that I love is his audio is incredible. Like if you hear me talking right now, it probably sounds mediocre. Brad, as he put it, is an audio snob, and I love that. His audio is going to sound so crisp. Brad, tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, I mean, so most of what I do is really just covering Michigan State hockey and a little bit of basketball and football for the Only Colors. But I did start a podcast sort of to have more of an outlet when it comes to, Michigan State stuff, whether it's football, basketball, or obviously hockey. So yeah, it's definitely like as far as Michigan State podcasts go, it's definitely going to have more hockey content than your typical Michigan State hockey podcast. But I think that there's definitely a little bit more football and basketball to it as well. So
Yeah.
just a bunch of guests on every week, and we just hang out and chill. It's
Yeah.
called
And I'll
Spartans
put
Digest, by the way.
Spartans Digest. I'll put a link to that in the description of this as well. So, getting into the game last night, Michigan State, their first quote unquote game of the season, they fall 4-3 to the development team. Um, this is, who cares about the score, in my opinion? They're running out lines they typically don't run out. They're trying some different things. They're switching goalies after two periods just to get some reps in. And this is a development team that's full of a lot of talent, and we're going to get to that later in the show. Um, just overall, right off the top of your head, anything major stick out from this game to you?
Yeah, the youth. Definitely the youth. And I think that it's good to see that. Like there are tons of new faces on this team. Obviously you got Muha from Lake Superior State. And he was on a line with two, I don't want to say new faces, but they're sophomores. I mean, they're underclassmen, right? You got Tucker and Kelly on that line. Uh, you know, um, and then who else is new? I think Dubinsky is
Yep.
a first year junior, to my knowledge. Tiernan Shouty's a freshman. Um, and then you got obviously Dorwert's a freshman. I don't know. I think Daniel Russell's also a transfer. I think I again I'm just going off what I know in my head.
Daniel
But
Russell's a freshman, but yes, a new face.
he anyway, it's just it's good to see a lot of young players stepping up. I mean, you had your presences from Krieger, the Krieger twins, and obviously Davidson had that massive goal, in the third period. So yeah, I mean, overall, I think it was a really good showing, and Michigan State also was the better team for the second half of the game, like
Yeah,
absolutely hands down.
that beginning of the game, we were texting during the game, and I texted you, I was like, "This is pretty sloppy." And about the first 4 minutes were, and then after that, it started to clean up a little bit. But you could tell this was, and it wasn't a just completely careless with the puck type of sloppy where it's like this team's doomed. It was more of a passes are slightly off. Players thought one guy was going to be somewhere else. It's just what happens when you haven't played with players very often. And we see this often in the first game of the year, first couple games of the year. And it's going to take some time for all of this youth and changes in coaching staff and style of play, which we'll touch on later, to kind of get used to each other, to build that chemistry. But as you mentioned, the goals, there were 3 goals from Michigan State in this game. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see them on the screen here. Carson Dort scored the first one. I've already told Brett I'm going to struggle with that name this year. It's just, I don't know why. It's just difficult for me to say. Daniel Russell had the assist, the primary there, and that was a really great pass. We'll get to that. Tiernan Chowdhury scored, and then Jeremy Davidson did what he does best, which is score goals. So we'll dive in. Here's the video. If you're watching on YouTube, you're going to see the first Carson Dort score of the game. And what this video, I did a poor job of editing this, but what you can see in the beginning, I'm going to try to pause it here. You can see Russell on your screen. He peels back towards the blue line and waits an extra second right here. You can tell. You can see him as he looks across the ice looking for the open man. You can see there's 3 defenders. One's right in front of the net. The other 2 are kind of guarding the passing lane. He held on just long enough for the defender to start to move his stick, which opened that passing lane. A flawless pass, and Carson Dort got it and just delivered it right over Trey Augustine and into the net, which actually tied the game at the time 1-1. Brad, what did you take away from that goal?
So in hockey, I think my favorite goals are the ones that you see unfold like in real time, right? Like if you're watching something on TV, like, this was obviously on Big 10 Plus. Like if you're watching it on TV, it's a completely different experience. Like witnessing it in real time, I think there are those goals where you're like, okay, like you see it. I think that the height of excitement just goes up. And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful play. Like that, those are the plays that I would like to see way more of.
Yeah, and that's 2 freshmen right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
And you
even
can
the two secondary assist, or the secondary and the primary assists were both from freshmen.
Yeah, and that's something that I noticed a little bit. And Daniel Russell was a player that caught my eye a few different times. He was on the 4th line tonight. We'll get into the line charts as well, but um, he has something, and I don't want
By the
to.
way, I don't mean to correct you. Russell is a junior. He's listed as a junior. The only thing is, I think because he's 20 or 21 or something like that, they technically list him as a junior because he must have the like college credits or something like that to.
I think we might have lost Brad there for a moment. So,
Can you hear me?
yep. Sorry, you froze.
Oh, did I?
So
Oh, I'm sorry.
Michigan State's roster has him as a freshman, it looks like. So they're going to have to update that if that's true. Regardless of his status, I thought he really stood out in this game at times. And if he is taking a line spot from somebody like an AJ Hodges, who is still a fine player, but may not have taken the steps that we thought he would take last year. I like what Russell brings to this lineup, honestly, and I could see him as a guy who can play. Of course, we're talking about a 1-game sample size, so I need to relax. But I see him as a guy who could potentially kind of play up and down this chart a little bit if injuries happen.
Yeah, I mean, he was exciting. I think again, like I said, that line was relatively good. For the most part, I think that honestly, all the lines kind of brought at least something to the table. As far as everything goes, but the Dorwart Russell, Joshua line was definitely it wasn't a negative, and I don't know. One of the other cool things that I noticed too that I want to mention real quick, before we dive into the rest of the game, is how this team played for the entire season or the entire game. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, They looked pretty good. If you wanna kinda jump into what you saw from, are you talking about, like, their style of play?
Yeah, I mean, just in general, did you notice, like, last year, for example, Michigan State, if and not even if they got like down by whatever. The third period, there was just some sort of, it felt like, gap in conditioning or something, where they were just not competing with teams at the end. And Michigan State held with the development team for the entire game.
Yeah,
And so,
that
and
3rd
they
period
were,
looked really good.
well, and also they outshot them like 37-27. So it might, again, like Nightingale said at the end, after the game, he was talking, sometimes you lose games that should have won. I mean, that's just kind of how it is. And he wasn't using it as sort of an excuse to sort of lose that game, but I think it just kind of goes to show like how well Michigan State played, again, for this being their very first game and exhibition matchup.
Yeah, and they cleaned up on the dot as well, 30 for 52 in faceoffs. Tucker was 6 for 10. Dubinsky was 8 for 12. Well, we're going to take a look at the second goal of the game, which was Tiernan Shouty. Let me pull that up here. Oh, now Shouty just kind of got probably one of the easier goals, and I'm glad to get that monkey off your back. Even if the game doesn't count, scoring a goal always feels good. This is his first in the green and white. Justin Jalen drives towards the net and shoots the puck, rebound, easy cleanup, deposits it in the back of the net. Tiernan Shouty right in front of the Munsters. Brad, anything that you saw from this goal?
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly like it just really it's music to my ears, if I could say. It was just I mean, really all you saw really is Michigan State crashing the net and really just
Yes.
following up and finishing the play. It was, you know, truly, it was, I don't know, it was a good one, and good on Shouty too. I remember when I was first going through the Mun edition, I remember seeing they have this big display with all the players' names. And I remember seeing Shouty, and I'm like, who is this guy? He looks super young, just fresh, like clean slate, right? And I didn't even know who the guy was, and all of a sudden he's
Yeah.
scoring his first goal in the first game I see him playing.
Yeah.
So
And I talked to um, Jeremy Dewar in the off season about him, and I think he knows Shouden's family personally, and he mentioned that just how great of a guy is, and he said he's the type of person that could be a future captain on this team. So we like praise like that. Once again, another freshman, and the assist, a newcomer as well. This team looks different. This team has different players. It's going to be refreshing to just kind of see players that maybe have some more skill, maybe have a little bit more touch around the net. The third goal and last goal of the game for Michigan State was Jeremy Davidson, who does this all the time last year. I mean, he was one of the best goal scorers in in the lineup night in and night out. And he just takes the puck. He gets a great pass across ice from Middendorf. These two are two of the more talented players in my mind from that are returning from last year. And Davidson just slaps it right past Trey Augustine.
yeah, this is probably my favorite goal of the night, honestly. I'm not gonna lie. Like I remember seeing this slap shot unfold, just like, and it's just something I can, again, picture. But it is, I don't know. Again, like you said, he did it all the time last year, and I just cannot wait for him to do this again.
Yeah, and you could see, I've paused it on YouTube if you're watching. You can see Middendorf, the vision he has here. A lot of times you may see a player go straight to the net here, but keeps his head up, makes the cross ice pass, and honestly, I mean, it ended up being just a perfect pass that went right to Davidson for the slap shot. So that it was just refreshing to see. Um, Kind of the offense work in that way and click, especially after the first few minutes where passes were a little bit off. And um, so, yeah, that third goal, we're probably going to see a lot of that from Jeremy Davidson. Now, between the pipes tonight was transferred Dylan St. Cyr. And you may have remembered this guy's name. He played at Notre Dame for a while. Shorter goalie. I believe he's listed at 5'8" and 167 pounds. So that's not new. Drew DeRitter wasn't a tall goalie or anything. So St. Cyr, what did you see from him last night?
I think that his stat sheet definitely doesn't really tell the bigger story, right? I mean, I think that Michigan State would have switched goalies, if you ask me, regardless of what the score was, if
Yeah,
it
that was
wasn't
likely
4-1.
predetermined.
Right. And Nightingale will say that, he wasn't sure if it was going to happen or not. I really thought it would happen more than likely. But yeah, it really, I mean, the stat sheet doesn't tell the full story. He faced 11 and a half shots a period. One, he gave up 4 goals, one of which he got tripped by his own guy. So that kind of sucks. That there's just I guess it's one of those games, where one of which, I mean, he didn't even see the puck, where the guy was standing sort of diagonally to him, and again, the shot just came out of nowhere. He wasn't sure if he was going to pass it or not. I think that, again, it's not too, I wouldn't read into anything too specific. One of the things that Michigan State, despite all of its woes in the last few years, as far as the team setup and makeup goes, they've always had good goaltending.
Yeah.
I mean, even last year, like Drew DeRitter was really good. Pierce Charleston was a really good backup in tandem with DeRitter. And, now you see in DeRitter's absence, we're probably going to do more of a 50-50 job. I'm not 100% sure on that. I'd be very interesting to see, but I do have a lot of confidence in what Charleston and St. Cyr can sort of accomplish this season. I have of Michigan State. Like if I'm a fan, I think that my worry on the goaltending side is like a 1.
Yeah. And, it's one of those things, we're dealing with a new coach here, so it's hard to say what they will do because we don't really have any evidence yet of what they're going to do with their lines. But in between the pipes for the development team was a player named Trey Augustine, and a more recent commit to Michigan State. He was originally committed to Michigan, which, if anyone's watching this, you follow college hockey enough to know Michigan's a damn good program. I
want to know really if the firing of Mel Pearson had anything to do with that.
And it might. We won't know. Regardless, I like that he's going to be in the green and white. He looked good last night. He did let up some goals, as you saw. You've actually seen the goals that he let up, and I didn't think any of them were like, oh my gosh, that looks terrible. He looked poised. He was moving well, and we're going to go ahead and play the video that we have from him last night. What did you think of his overall play?
It's hard to say. I mean, Augustine's a really good goaltender. He only let up three goals, but and he faced 37 shots, so that's actually not that bad. You know what I mean?
Really
All
good,
right.
yeah.
So, whereas Michigan State goaltenders only faced 27, giving up 4, that's a little bit more, upsetting to see. I don't know. So on that side, like I would be less concerned with him. Again, I just think that it was sort of an interesting, sort of a bad night for MSU goaltending. But as far as Augustine goes, he played really well. I mean, I don't have any, it's hard to say because it's just one game. And he's also working in complete 50-50 tandem right now with Musser, who is the other goaltender for the NTDP. So, yeah, I mean, even tonight, like they're playing Notre Dame and, Musser's in net. So they're kind of doing a one-on-one each time. So I guess for Augustine's sake, he's facing a lot of guys that are, again, in college. They're a lot older than him. So, I mean, to stand up to a college team and only let in 3 goals, I think that's a pretty good accomplishment.
Yeah, and I would have been interested to sit in the Munsters, the student section last night, because he was, as the way goalies do, playing right in front of them for 2 periods. However, he is the opposition, but he is a commit. I wonder if they were kind of cheering him on at the same time. But one other thing the Munsters did do last night was, and if you aren't familiar with the Munsters, I actually did a interview podcast with them this previous week. So you can find that through the YouTube channel to kind of learn how you can get involved with that as well. But they made signs and had them up on the glass. And it was going around Twitter a little bit, and they were chanting and cheering for Gabe Perreault, which is a player who you might have known, number 4 last night for the development team. He's uncommitted right now. One of the last, I think, was he? I think he was the last uncommitted player in the lineup last night for the development team. Maybe one other.
The only other player on the NTDP's entire roster, I believe, to my knowledge, is Carson Musser, who's the other NTDP goaltender that I mentioned. He's uncommitted as well.
So Gabe Perreault is a special talent. He's like a first round NHL draft type of talent. And like I said, he's uncommitted. He obviously knows this coaching staff and Adam Nightingale well. And he had a good game last night, as we'll put it up on the screen here. You'll see his first goal. This was the game-winning goal. Brad, walk us through what happened with that game-winning goal. And you'll also see him kind of make a nice forehand, backhand right as he receives it, which I actually thought was really a nifty move. St. Cyr stopped the puck, but that's a quick play, a quick thought, and a really high-scoring or a high-grade scoring chance.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the interesting thing about it is that the play looked a lot worse for MSU than it, in person than it does when I go back and rewatch. At first it really looked like St. Cyr got tripped up by his own guy, and so that might be true. But the other side of it is that that was a really good move by Perreault. You know what I mean? So he could have tricked both the defender and St. Cyr. You know what I mean? So I just think that it was a really, really, really impressive move. Now looking back on it on film. So again, at first I was like, MSU again, sort of apathetically, but now it's a really good goal.
Good on the student section, being aware in recruiting.
Doing the research too. Yeah.
They are not breaking any violations or anything. They're totally allowed to do that. Recruiting in hockey's so different than other sports, but they were loud. They were cheering him on. They had the signs. And that goal that he scored, if you notice, was right in front of the student section. And where did he skate? He just happened to be on that side of the ice. He didn't skate to the student section, but the celebration ended up right in front of the student section. So I would love to see him in green and white in the future.
No, and there were signs. I loved the signs. They were like, Gabe, we want you. One of them said, green is your color. It was, oh my God, it was unbelievable, to be honest.
Yeah. So we'll get into the line chart here. Anyone that watched the game probably understands this line chart will change for the upcoming series against Bowling Green. Again, that series Friday night at Munn. I will be at that game. Brad will be at that game. Saturday at Bowling Green. I will be at the game at Bowling Green. Brad, are you going to make that trip? I know you had kind of thought about it.
I would love to. The only thing is I don't have the time. Saving up for a wedding.
Folks, he's got to stay home and watch Michigan State football play Ohio State, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. No, thank you. I was thinking about trying to do them at the same time, like go to Ohio State for the game, and that wouldn't have worked because for some reason Michigan State hasn't been scheduled any noon games this year. So we're doing another one at like 4. So, but
okay. So as we look at the lines here, what's your overall takeaway? I thought that fourth line, which was Joshua, Dort, and Russell, I thought that was a good line, especially for a fourth line. They have a little bit more offense than what we've seen in a fourth line. Again, these lines, I don't know how much they matter. I thought Nicholas Mueller had a little bit more offense to him in this game and he's always been a talented player that just hasn't exactly put together the offense. I've always thought there's more in there with him. I thought he looked pretty good. Not flawless, but a pretty good game. Any special takeaways you have, especially that second line? I'm sure you like that.
Yeah, I mean the second line is interesting to me, I think, because you have Middendorf, Dubinsky, and Davidson, who all together I think had like 11 or 12 shots or something like that all together, right? And including the goal by Davidson, right? You had that special setup by Mittendorf. It was a really nice play. But it's funny because they also were responsible for two of the development team's 4 goals. So it's hard to say. Really, is what from what initially I think that I need a lot more research to on which players I need to see them work with other players to really
Yeah.
decide on what's best. But I don't know. Again, it's the first game, and it's also an exhibition game. So, like for example, something I thought was interesting is David Gucciardi was scratched, which was sort of surprising to me. I'm not sure if that's going to be sort of a normal thing or not. You know.
I believe he has an injury, a minor injury.
Oh, okay. Did not know that.
Don't quote me on that. I don't have any sources or anything or know anything, but David Gucciardi, number 7, we saw him last year. Is probably the best defender, one of the best defensive players from Michigan State. Was drafted this past year actually by the Capitals. I expect him to be in the lineup. Speaking of defensemen, Victor Hertig is also a draft pick of the Devils. I think he's going to end up being good. This is his first game in North America, and he's a big boy, 6'6". Let me see,
191
197
pounds.
pounds. His game last night, I think he, if I remember correctly, I think he had a bad turnover at one point, but um, he's going to learn how to use that body, and he's going to put on some strength, and it's going to be a force. And I think having a kind of a more stay-at-home defenseman with some size is something that this team, I guess you can say, has had in the past, but just not to that level of size. Michael Underwood, number 22, he transferred over from Northern Michigan, and he was just like firing the puck on net, which I liked a lot. He seemed to be pretty active. And the Krieger twins are back. Was it Christian Krieger that went like coast to coast on one play, which is something I've never seen him do before?
I did not catch that, to be honest. But he was. I mean, the Krieger twins were. I thought that they were more useful for what their style of play is. I
Yeah.
think that the as far as these lines go, I really think that Nightingale set them up with the style of play and everything. I think that he really set them up for success, if you would say. Much better, much more offense, creativity there. It's definitely something that I'd like to see.
So before we let you go here, just dive into what you thought of kind of, I guess, the gameplay and the style of play that you saw, or any differences that you might have seen. And again, everyone, we are working off a 1-game sample size of an exhibition game. Like, don't take this as law, but we all want some Michigan State hockey content. We all want to talk about it. We're all very excited. So, what you saw that may have been different, just from the coaching staff.
Well, so the first thing that I noticed, I think, is the difference between style and play from Danton Cole to Adam Nightingale, and specifically because Cole would sort of divert like a lot of energy into playing physically, right? Like some of the best games last season, like Notre Dame, for example. Michigan State's keeping up with them and fighting them, and really sort of being the aggressor, almost. And I don't know if that really what I don't know that was helped out by some of the players' skill sets, because I'm just not so sure that some of the players were, I don't want to say good enough for that, but that's just not, that sort of team's identity, if that makes sense, right? So
Mhm.
Nightingale plays with more of a modern style of hockey, and it's kind of you admire it, And this is no disrespect to Cole either, but when you listen to Nightingale talk, like you have this sense that he sort of like understands what he's trying to do. Like he
Yeah.
has a goal and he sort of knows where he wants to go to accomplish that. So I think that for one is just reassuring in and of itself. But as far as like the modern style of hockey, I think it's nice because you always want those coaches to sort of adapt, right? Like for example, when the US national team in the 70s or whatever during the Cold War, you had this dude that came in with a new style of hockey, and all of a sudden, it works out in their favor. And so it just adapting to those new style and changes will be, I think, beneficial towards Michigan State's, success.
Yeah, and that's probably about going to wrap it up for this week. Again, Michigan State has their opening series against Bowling Green this upcoming weekend, the 7th and 8th, a home and home series. Um, I don't know. It feels like we could learn a lot from that. Bowling Green, by the way, yesterday, I should say Saturday night, played, and I was keeping up with it. At one point, it was tied 4-4. I don't know the end result of that game. I should have looked
6-4.
that up. 6-4.
I
Okay,
got
yeah.
you. I got
Look,
you. And actually, what was this? Oh, it was a shorthanded goal was the last goal. That's funny.
okay,
Oh, probably because it was a empty netter. But
yeah.
anyway.
So Brad with the assist there. Thank you so much. But
You're welcome.
hey, man, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll have to do this again soon. Again, check out Brad's podcast. I'll put it in the description here, and go green.